name, for those of you who care, is Brian Jeffery. And as it turns out, it's Brian Jeffery if you don't care. And I'm going to be your guide as we take a tour down through history today. I always like to find out who's traveled the farthest to be here, out of curiosity. So
we have.
We're locals.
Local. Canada. Nothing for, no points for Canada. Where are you folks from?
Nice.
Also remember from our history lessons that the first atomic weapon was dropped on Hiroshima on August the 6th, 1945. 2 days later, they dropped the equivalent 20 kiloton bomb on Nagasaki, and within a heartbeat, 200,000 people lost their lives. 4 years later, in 1949, the Soviet Union got atomic weapons, and the arms race began. So the conventional wisdom, conventional thinking around the world until about the early 70s, or late 70s, was not so much a matter, are we going to have a nuclear war? It was really a matter, when are we going to have a nuclear war? And that's the context under which buildings like this became necessary. We were essentially ready to go to war. And in fact, we did get very close to war in 1962. Another one of my many quiz questions. Who remember what happened in 1962?
Bay of Pigs.
Right country, wrong incident. No points for that one.
Okay, shoot.
Yeah. Well, you already got 10, so I don't know where you're on about.
You already had, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was Cuban, but what? You want a second shot at it?
Okay.
It was the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh, I thought it was a Bay. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
Bay of Pigs is the Americans
Something
attacking.
different. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
entirely. So that was the only time that this building was ever locked down. Nobody got in, nobody got out for several days. In fact, interesting enough, on my morning tour, I had a gentleman who was here in 1962 and was locked down during that period.
Oh,
So we
really?
had an interesting conversation after the tour was over. In any event, the Canadian government did not come here at that time because the Canadian government didn't take the Cuban Missile Crisis very seriously. I personally took it extremely seriously. At that particular time, I happened to be up on the Arctic on the distant early warning radar line as a civilian radar operator. And quite frankly, we were not sure there was going to be a South to come home to. That's how seriously we saw it. We also recognized, because there were so few of us, that nobody was going to come and get us. Made for interesting evening conversation. The building itself, basically, you're going to be visiting a military ghost town and Cold War artifact designed by the Military Corps of Engineers, built by the Foundation Company out of Montreal. Designed and built between 1959 and 1961. 18 months to build the building, an engineering feat, as we were mentioning.
Yeah.
We couldn't do that today to save our souls. The building was began their life in 1962, operated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year for 32 years.
Wow.
Constantly about 60 people in the building at any given time. Not the same 60, let them go home, bring new ones in, but always about 60 people. The building will hold 535 people at full capacity. Although it was around 400 would have been government employees, senior people, around 100 military personnel, and around 20-25 politicians. Why we're going to let the politicians in, bit of a mystery, but that's why the place was here. Told you that. Where am I going here? Got it, okay. In terms of planning on staffing the facility, what should have happened is as we got close to war, senior government officials should have come out here and set up their offices, which I'll show you. And then in the final days or hours, the politicians would come out. There was always a 2-car train kept at Union Station, downtown Ottawa, to bring the politicians out here. Again, why you travel by via rail in emergencies, another one of those mysteries of life, but that was the original plan. Latter days it was by bus, final days it was by helicopter, and there's the helipad out there.
Oh.
Told you that. Okay, I'm on the roll now. Primary purpose for the facility was called continuance of government. Theory being if you can continue to govern your country even though you've been attacked, you're less likely to be attacked. Seems to have worked when you think of it. A little humor there, not much apparently. It was supposed to be a secret facility. The cover story for the facility was that it was the Experimental Army Signals Establishment, EASE, E is for short, and in true Canadian fashion, we kept that secret for approximately 20-30 minutes. And as a part of the tour, I'll share that story with you. The building was part of the military's communication system, known as the receiver building. Why? Because it was full of radio receivers. The transmitters associated with this station were not located here. They were located outside Perth, Ontario, about 60 kilometers away in that direction. Wires were underground from this site to that site.
Still there?
That site has been sealed forever. We'll never get into it again. The wires are still underground, but we have no reason to pull them up. But the question occasionally comes up is why would you put your transmitter 60 kilometers away from your main station? Well, in World War II, early years of the Cold War, enemy bombers would hone in and drop their bombs on transmitted signals. So the idea apparently was drop your bombs on the people in Perth and leave us alone. I'm not sure how they felt about it. I haven't done a survey. The building was shut down in 1994. It was stripped empty. The first 4 tours I paid my money for, so nothing but empty rooms. Today you'll see something everywhere I take you, all done by volunteers.
Oh,
This
wow.
is a volunteer-driven museum. We still do the maintenance for the most part, although we do have paid museum staff now. I'm not sure that's a plus, but we got them anyway. Told you that. We're now a National Historic Site and a private museum. I mention that because it costs us around $5,000 to $7,000 a month to keep the lights on in the building, and we get no funding assistance to do so. So we're delighted that you're here. The last mandatory stop on my tours is the gift shop. You have to buy something, I don't care what it is. You may want to get a copy of our best-selling book called Adventures from the Coldest Part of the Cold War, which is autographed by the author, whom, as it turns out, is me. And there'll be 2 more commercial messages before we're done. But you're going to have to move fast, because I looked at them a couple of years ago, and the other vertical antennas are all ours. So we do, you'll see our stations, we go on the air.
They weren't original though.
No, yeah, some of them are original. And the beam antenna is in an original location, but all those towers have been taken down.
Okay.
By the way, the building itself is designed to withstand a 5 megaton ground burst, about 1.25 miles away. 5 megatons is 250 times the size of bomb that fell in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Wow.
We're told that had that happened, the wind over the bunker would exceed 1,000 kilometers an hour. Everything above ground disappears. The buildings are gone, antennas, grass is torn out by the roots. Our building would have moved, but remained functional.
So was the building, this is obviously a new building. Was there an actual building here before, a structure?
No, this was basically a gravel pit that they went down a little further into, and then they built the bunker up in there. You'll see a photo of it.
Okay.
So come on in with our next stop will be the inside of the bunker. 5 or so, excuse me, and the reason is that if you live in this area, you know, we get pretty incredible. BC doesn't know what snow is, but out here we get a lot of snow, which builds up against the entranceway to the blast tunnel, made it hard to get into the building. So we built this building so that would keep the snow away from there. There are some artifacts in the building. One, of course, is this sign here. They used to hang up on the highway, letting everybody know where the secret station was. We wouldn't want anybody to get lost trying to find us. Obviously, the next largest item is this bomb here. This bomb comes with a story. It's a quiz question as well, worth 10 points. Who knows what the term broken arrow means? Any takers on broken arrow?
It means a lost warhead.
A lost?
Warhead.
Actually, yeah, you're close enough. I'll give you 10 points for that. Good for you. What it means is we've lost a nuclear weapon. The Americans have had 38 broken arrow incidents. They're very sloppy with their nuclear weapons apparently. But the first one occurred in Canada. It was on February the 15th, just after Valentine's Day, 1950. An American B-36 bomber was on a simulated bomb run from Anchorage, Alaska, down the British Columbia coast to Seattle, Washington. Halfway down the BC coast, the aircraft ran into mechanical difficulty, turned out over the Pacific Ocean and dropped the weapons. And the crew bailed out, we're told. Then the aircraft turned around and flew for several more hours, crashing in the interior of British Columbia. The aircraft was found by the Canadians, interestingly enough, 2 years later, and it took the Americans another 2 years to get into the site to destroy the aircraft and whatever was on board. About 8 or 10 years ago now, an expedition went out there for the last time to seal the site because there had been a loss of life, we believe, headed by Dr. John Clearwater, one of our volunteers at the time, and the Discovery Channel made a movie of that expedition called Lost Nuke. So if you're watching the Discovery Channel, you see the movie, that's the story of the first broken arrow incident, and that's a prop from the movie. Also, our museum is the keeper of the artifacts from that expedition. So here is a display.
That's what the bomb would have looked like then.
That's what the bombs would have looked like at that time. It would be, I can't remember what the name of it, or the model.
Wow.
But that would be a conventional atomic weapon. Probably 50 kilotons. Okay, questions at all?
Those bombs.
The large one is the 5 megatons. Those are dummy bombs, of course. Just in case anybody wants to.
They are nuclear bombs. I mean, that's what.
Yeah, that's what they look like now. Those are our Air Force's dummy bombs that we able to acquire. So our next stop is going to be at the entranceway.
Sure, nothing to say.
Do is take off all your clothes and put them in the bin here. Would anybody like to try it for a fact? No takers. Huh? No, you don't see. You weren't who I was hoping for, but of course comes the show. I didn't give any points for it either. No. Any water that's on you now goes down through this drain and directly out of the building. This part of the building is under very slight negative air pressure, so we always have air flowing in. So don't get radioactive crud floating up. Reason for the cold shower, if you close on, you want whatever radioactivity, whatever radioactive material stuck to your clothes so you can dump it into the bin. The cold shower means your pores are going to close up, so you're not going to get anything in you, we hope. Second part of the process is going in this direction is another shower, hot shower, and you're going to try to get a couple layers of skin off your body. It sounds a lot worse than it really is. Essentially, it's washing with a pumice stone. There'll be somebody at the exit with a Geiger counter and a radiation measuring device to make sure that you are clean, quote unquote. If you're still measuring, if you're still getting a reading on you at that point, what do you think that would have meant?
Do it again?
No, there's only so many times you can, so much skin you can take off. What it meant is that you now have radioactivity in you, not on you. Depending on how much radioactivity is now in you, you of course could die, but for sure your immune system will be compromised to some extent. If you have just the right amount of radiation so you glow in the dark, they use you as a nightlight down in the sleeping quarters. That's not true, I made that up. Questions at all?
What's behind this big door right here?
This is just the entrance into this room which will be filling up with clothes.
Oh, okay.
So someone will come in here ultimately with a hazmat. Very small but complete hospital. And if you wander down the corridor that way, the open area on your left is the operating room. Far left is a laboratory for a technician. Far right is the doctor's examining room. Open area on the right is the pharmacy. Small three-bed infirmary here. One is, as I mentioned outside, the facility was designed to stand a 5 megaton ground burst, 1.1 mile away. Now, wander back in this direction.
X-ray machine.
You notice the infirmary is quite small. There's only 3 beds. Down the corridor on the left-hand side are 2 infirmary overflows. Both of them have 3 double bunks, a total of 6 beds in each room. What's unusual about those rooms is when you're in there and the door is closed, you are locked in. It's called the infirmary overflow and confinement center. So everybody's had a, if you sort of wander back in this direction, I got most of you back here.
Yeah.
Mostly all of this.
And he said that they were building this building so fast that they were pouring the concrete for the second level while they were getting the drawings for the third level. So they didn't even know what was above them while they were building it. So we're now 154 feet from the front of the building. This is the back wall. And you see about 2.5 feet of concrete. And we'll give you some construction details next room over. 6-inch steel door, normally kept closed. If you look in through the opening, you'll see a grate on the floor. It's a great grate. You know it's a bad joke, but look at the grate. There's a cavity on the floor down there. And if I bounce my death ray off the mirror on the back of the room, you should see it bouncing off the ceiling. I'm going to take a peek at it. And you'll see on the ceiling is it, can you sneak it in?
Look into the
Big grate into the cavity. And the suction of all this pulls in the skylight. So then you open up the 6-inch steel door and climb into that chamber. And there's rungs on the side of that chamber and the tunnel to get you out of the building safely. So there's an emergency exit here and one in the emergency radio room and the far end of this floor. So why would you use this? Well, if your main doors are jammed or your blast tunnel is full of debris and you can't get out, this is one of 2 ways out of the building. Now, we know the system works very effectively. You notice the wiring here was added at a later date from the original wiring. Apparently, as the workman was pushing these wires through the wall, one of the wires got caught on the handle pulled, system worked as advertised, scared the bejesus out of him with him. And it took them 3 days to get the gravel back up into the tunnel again. Photo on the wall here. This is the site under construction. I'm the master of the obvious. Notice the date though, 6th of June, 1961. There's the blast tunnel going in, and you can see the outline of where the bunker ultimately was going to be put. Shortly after this photograph was taken, a reporter for the Toronto Telegram by the name of George Brimmel flew over the site in a light plane, counted 78 toilets and vacuum crates, and figured there's something else going on here besides the experimental arming signals establishment. Published an article in the Toronto Telegram, letting the entire world know the secret station. Thank you, Toronto. I'll contrast that with the United States. Their equivalent bunker is in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, underneath a hotel called Greenbrier. The Americans lifted Greenbrier up, built a bunker underneath. It's about 10% larger than ours, lowered the hotel back down on top, and they kept that secret until 1992, I believe, when a reporter for the Washington Post blew the whistle on that place, and they evacuated it and shut it down within 2 days. We're just not good at keeping secrets. So come around the mall floor, and notice all of these pillars. Every 22 feet in the building is a pillar. It goes from the very top of the building down to the very bottom. Doesn't stop between floors. Flares out to 10 feet at the top, 10 feet at the bottom. That's to avoid punch through. You'll notice over here, this gentleman is obviously seen. Here's the pillar, about 5 feet across, full of steel. And here's, you see how it flares out to 10 feet as it goes up towards the ceiling. Like as I mentioned, when the air circulating equipment, so they were using this model to see where things were supposed to go. So the model was built before the building was built.
Wow. So this is the actual model?
This is the actual model. So this is truly an artifact. We had,
wow.
We had to build a cage around them to keep fingers from getting in.
Oh, sure, for sure.
Okay. 50 kilometers away in Perth, Ontario. This room has now been repurposed as an amateur radio station, so we have a number of stations along here. And we have a pretty active group. There's about 20 of us that come in and operate the station from time to time. Last year we talked to over 1,000 people from 25 feet underground in a nuclear bunker. So it gets to be quite a bit of a cachet when you're talking to somebody in a nuclear bunker. So it's a little bit of fun.
Level 2.
Wow.
Well,
What on earth is this?
first start the
Yeah, no one needs more than 64.
Okay, so the room you're standing in is called OSAX, which stands for Ottawa Semi-Automatic Exchange, and the room comes up for a very important reason. What they found in the mid-70s is if you had the proper equipment on the surface, you could actually pick up the data coming out of the facility. Basically, the building was leaking information, so they had to stop it. So they built this room as an employee of the Burroughs Corporation. But to this day, he will not tell us what went on in this room, and that's how he honored. I mean, I probably thumb screws to him at night, and he won't give in. So that's how he honors his oath of secrecy. On the other hand, I sell my secrets for McDonald's coffee medium, double and I carry it out.
1960? Wow.
It would have been more like 10 to 12 of them here. So the government of the day would have been briefed by a number of sources. One is the military, which come in through that office there called the Military Information Center, MIC. And they would brief the government of the day as to what's happening with the war. The war would not have been run from this building. This is where Canada would have been, I hesitate to say governed, but probably managed would be a better word as we try to get through the crises. Second source of briefing is that office there, which we'll pass through shortly, called the Secretariat. The equivalent downtown today would be the Privy Council. So there'll be about 20 government employees, hopefully awake. They will come in, brief the government of the day as to what's happening with the various government departments. Third source of briefings are these television sets. These are level 1 artifacts. These are the original TVs that were in the building. It's a closed circuit television system. Pretty well archaic. Okay. So then,
1960? Wow.
this is a two-part question for 6 points. And of course,
This place is huge.
It just goes on and on and on.
there's one in the other room, and also on the ceiling, so you can rotate around. The controls are in the far corner of it. The people on this side of the two rooms are interested in where the bombs are falling on the general population. They want to keep track of casualties. The people on the other side of the room are interested in infrastructure. How can we move supplies from one part of the country to the other? What's happening with the airports, seaports, highways, trains, planes, etc. So the people in this part of the room would use this backlit map. This is not the real one. The real one's in the basement of the War Museum, but they won't give it back to us. But this gave them the big picture. What's happening in North America with the war? For example, this is a 1 megaton airburst in Edmonton at that time. Now here's an interesting gem of information for you. But every province across Canada, with the exception of one, had a formal emergency measures program in place for the protection of its population. Who'd like to venture a guess as to which province did not have a formal emergency measures program in place?
Saskatchewan.
Bingo, Saskatchewan, right here, NDP government. Figured if they ignored the Cold War, it would go away. Lucky guess. What I don't think they fully appreciated, in my mind anyways, down south in the United States were all kinds of missile sites. These would have been prime targets for the Russians. So had these been bombed, the radiation would have come up over Saskatchewan, would have lost the entire population. 8, 10 people gone, just like that. So, this bunker designed to hold 275 people. And that's where the British Columbia government would have gone in case of nuclear attack. The Alberta government went to a bunker in Pinhole. Saskatchewan government went directly to hell. The Manitoba government goes to Shiloh. The Ontario government goes to Borden. The Quebec government goes to Valcartier. New Brunswick had it in the basement of the Parliament buildings. Nova Scotia has their bunker in Burt, and PEI and Newfoundland were the basement of the Parliament buildings. So there were other.
Prime Minister's suite.
Yeah, but Jim spent his last 15 years at the CBC as a technician coming to this bunker every 6 months to test that equipment to make sure it was equal to or better than new. So we know.
The Canadian Emergency Broadcasting System. I repeat, this is another emergency broadcast by the Canadian Emergency Broadcasting System. Sirens are again sounding, or have sounded, the attack warning. Another enemy attack on North America has been detected. I repeat, this is another attack warning. Take cover immediately. Here's some instructions. If you are at home, go to the basement or strongest part of your house or building, which offers
Cafeteria. Wow. Unbelievable.
Open area in the building. The area you see over here, when I was in the building, that was full of shuffleboard, pool table, and darts and so forth. So that was the enlisted men's recreation area, and this door was fully wall would have been closed. Through that doorway, you, like Elvis, will have left the building. You're going to be in a passageway between one bunker and the second bunker that houses the Bank of Canada vault. The doorway you see at the end of the corridor, you will shortly, weighs 13 tons. It takes 4 people with separate combinations to open. You go walk all the way around that vault if you wanted to. There's mirrors on the 4 corners of that passageway. And if I shine my death ray in one direction, you'd see it bounce back in the other. That's so one guard can stand at the doorway and look all the way around the vault. The only gold that was ever in that vault was whatever was in people's teeth. Nor can we find the plans to bring the gold out here. It must have existed, but nobody knows where it is, including the Bank of Canada. Begs the question, why would you bother to bring the gold out here? Well, after a major war, your paper money can and often does become valueless. So the only currency we have by more food, weapons, medical supplies is going to be gold. Well, radioactive gold is useless. So you want to bring your gold out here to keep from becoming radioactive. So I'll take you down into the vault. By the way, the reason I'm explaining out here is a huge echo in the vault. So I'll give you a couple more pieces of information in the vault, then we'll bring you back here, we'll wrap up the tour.
And how much did that weigh again? That door?
13 tons.
13 tons.
That's just the door. The frame is 32 tons. The door and the frame is 2 tons.
Oh my goodness.
When they ordered it, the colors changed. Of course it isn't. But why that is there is that the main door was closed at 13 tons. You had an air pressure difference between the 2 areas. You never get the door open. So you open up a small door, it equalizes the air pressure while you open up the main door. You see that I have showed you. We have some time. Yep. This elevator is going to take you to that stairwell, so if you want to come.